Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome back everyone to English word classes and phrases. And today's topic is all about adverbs. So what are adverbs? Adverbs are words that modify other words. So they modify other adverbs, they modify verbs, they modify adjectives. Okay. The only thing they can't modify is they can't modify nouns. Okay. We will also talk about comparative form of an adverb and superlative form of an adverb. Okay. So let's look at this. What do you think? Imas dances jaipong beautifully. So what does beautifully modify in this case? Right. So beautifully here modifies the verb dances. Right. That old man must be awfully hungry. Which one is the adverb? Awfully. So that adverb awfully modifies the word hungry. Okay? We will inform you the results very soon. Which one's the adverb? Very soon. And what does it modify? Very soon does not modify only the verb nor another word, but in fact, it modifies the whole sentence. Okay? You are entirely in the wrong. Pretty much like very soon, entirely here modifies the whole clause or the whole sentence. Strangely enough, I won the first prize. Strangely enough works like very soon, and entirely that it modifies the whole clause. Okay? Are adverbs necessary in that? Do we need adverbs in our sentence? Let's take a look at it. Imas dances jaipong beautifully. Can we remove it? Imas dances jaipong. Yes. Right? So that means adverbs are not that necessary, right? Adverbs are optional. We'll inform you the results very soon. We'll inform you the results. And that's a perfectly grammatical sentence, okay? Strangely enough, I won the first prize. You can simply say, I won the first prize. And that's perfectly acceptable. Okay? So, in short, adverbs are optional. They are required only when you want to supply additional information about the action or the whole clause, time, place, and other things. Okay? What are kinds of adverbs? The first one is manner. So, beautifully. The li ending is actually a typical characteristics of an adverb manner. So it explains way of doing things beautifully. So that means the way Imas dances is so beautiful. Place or time, we will get there soon. That is time. And then frequency, she never, right? Never, seldom, almost, always. Ridiculously, degree, right? Very, rather, enough, right? And then distance, I drove 10 kilometers farther than necessary. Right? It tells you the distance. Focus, I drove only 1 kilometer farther than necessary. And attitude or viewpoint, strangely enough, honestly enough, frankly speaking, I won the first prize. Okay? Alright, task 2, I would like you to look at these sentences and especially looking at the adverbs and tell me what kind of adverb, okay? Alright. And task 3, I'd like you to create a sentence for each type: manner, place, time, frequency, distance, degree, focus, and attitude or viewpoint. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions or concerns. Okay? Alright, now on to comparatives and superlatives. Ujang works hard, right? So that's a typical simple sentence. But when we want to compare how Ujang works relative to others, we can say Ujang works harder than, Asep works harder than Ujang, right? So we are comparing how Asep works in relation to how Ujang works. Or Agus works harder than ever. So Udin works the hardest of all, okay? The bird sings loudly. The moose sang more loudly than the bird. Pete sang the most loudly. Okay. And here is a list of adverbs with and ist, fast, faster, slow, slower, quick, quicker, okay? And the majority of adverbs actually use more and most, mostly because the number of syllables in these adverbs are 2 and more, okay? Alright, so what's the rule? So can you guess when to add ending and ist to an adverb? And can you also tell me how to and when to add more and most to adverbs? You can revisit my presentation on adjectives, and you can later figure out how to address these questions, okay? Alright, class 4, I would like you to find a correct comparative and superlative in these sentences, okay? Now on irregular comparative superlative adverbs. So pretty much like adjectives, where it comes to comparative superlative adjectives, there are some adjectives that do not behave like the typical adjectives in the sense that they do not pattern in the same way. So they are irregular, and the same is true of adverbs. So some adverbs somehow behave differently, okay? So they do not follow any rules or patterns. These must be memorized, like bad, badly, worse, much, more, most, little, less, least, much, more, most, well, better, and best, okay? Here are some examples of the so-called irregular adverbs. So for example, Asep writes a paper well. Asep writes a paper as well as Asep. Ujang writes a paper better than Asep, not weller, right? Ujang writes a paper the best, not the wellest, right? It's not acceptable at all. Alright, next is connective adverbs. So the kind of adverbs that are used in establishing the connection. Like, for example, grammar is complicated, however, it's fun. So in this case, however is an adverb. It's a connective adverb. On Todd gambled heavily, and as a result, he lost his money and family. So as a result is the so-called connective adverb. The president found out that I'm quite qualified to be a minister. Furthermore, he also knows that I'm Henki Kurniawan's sibling. So the word furthermore is also another connective adverb, okay? Another area that is interesting about adverbs is the so-called negative adverbs, and in this case we are looking at inversion constructions. So somehow the order of the word is inverted. So for example, never has there been a complaint about how much party the grammar class offers. So regular, a prototypical sentence or simple sentence says goes, there has never been a complaint, right? And so there's this inversion between never and never has preceding there. On no account must you accept his love. In a simple regular sentence, you must accept his love on no account, okay? Another example, I was surprised to see my face this morning. Only then did I realize I was cursed to be good looking, right? So only then did, instead of I then realized, for example. So sudden was her demise, right? So those are examples of the so-called inversion constructions, okay? Homework assignment, I'd like you to find where in a sentence each type of adverb may appear. So you just experiment with different types of adverbs and with different types of sentences, and see whether the adverbs can appear initially at the outset of the sentence, after the subject, within the verb, before the object, or finally sentence finally, okay? All right, that's all for now. Thank you so much for your attention. We'll see you again next week. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.